A good day and a warm welcome to our participants from wherever you are at the WTO in Geneva or joining virtually from around the world. Today's diverse participation is really great because we're welcoming today an equally inspiring and diverse group of panelists representing youth ecopreneurs from different parts of the world, as well as those panelists that raise their voices for the needs of the younger generation and their green ventures. So my name is Annegret Braus. I'm your moderator today. I'm coordinating the Green to Compete initiative of the International Trade Center, the joint agency of the World Trade Organization and the UN, supporting small businesses in developing countries to connect to international markets. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Finland, with whom we're co-organizing this session today. We will be talking about what ecopreneurship means and how we can particularly support young ecopreneurs to succeed in the green transition. In the next 60 minutes so, we will first have a keynote speech, followed by an interactive discussions and some poll questions. Please do feel free to use the chat function anytime to post questions, as there will be time for Q&A at the end. So before diving into the panel discussion, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ville Skinnari, Finland's Minister for Development, Cooperation and Foreign Trade. He was so kind to record his keynote remarks before the session even. So let me share my screen with all of you. Should be coming.
Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning to everyone wherever you are. It is a great pleasure to me to address the opening of this working session organized by the International Trade Center and Finland. Today's topic, youth, entrepreneurs, and innovation to build back greener, is at the very heart of our cooperation with the ITC. It's also at the heart of our and well-being. Since 9 out of 10 new jobs are created in the private sector, it is self-evident that we have to invest in the entrepreneurs in developing countries, especially youth and women. Ladies and gentlemen, entrepreneurship is the backbone of any national economy. Entrepreneurs create employment and well-being for the entire society. The main role of the public sector is to create a sound operating environment where companies can do business and flourish. Today's working session will focus especially on youth and the critical role they can play as the employers of tomorrow. In most emerging economies, the majority of the working population earn their living in the informal economy, including the youth. We don't always realize it, but the informal economy is often deeply connected to international trade. For example, commercial agriculture, extractive industries, manufacturing and service sectors many times use the goods and services and labor inputs of informal enterprises as part of their value chain. As a donor, it would make much sense to direct more support to the informal sector, but the reality is that it is very difficult when the companies do not formally exist. I think it would be important to find ways for development actors to work also with the informal sector. Dear friends, green transition is our common objective. Countries around the world are allocating billions of dollars to cushion the negative effects of the COVID pandemic. It is important that we use the money in a way that allows us to build back better and greener. In other words, we must not return to our old habits, but use this opportunity to create more sustainable and resilient economies and societies. Climate change is the biggest challenge of our times. Extensive droughts, devastating storms, massive rains and landslides have cost human lives, destroyed harvests, and caused enormous economic losses. In 2019, Finland set a target of becoming carbon neutral by 2035. From there on, Finland aims to be carbon negative. It is an ambitious goal, but we want to contribute to the global effort to keep the temperature increase at maximum 1.5 degrees Celsius. The European Union has pledged to become carbon neutral by 2050, and this applies to many other countries as well. Carbon neutrality, however, will not happen by itself. We need to work hard. Production and consumption patterns need to change. We need incentives, we need regulation, and we need innovations. Private sector and entrepreneurs are at the center of innovations. It is vital to empower youth and create a sustainable, suitable environment for them to innovate and enterprise in the green economy. Circular economy is one of the key tools to address the climate crisis. We have to reduce our waste footprint for the benefit of the climate and for the environment, but also because waste and overconsumption do not make economic sense. I'm glad that Finland and ITC have joined forces in supporting youth and women entrepreneurship and advancing green transition and circular economy in partner countries. I'm also extremely glad that today we have the opportunity to listen to remarkable young entrepreneurs who will share their journey and experiences as green entrepreneurs. They will shed light on the roadblocks that stand in the way of green youth entrepreneurship and tell us what can be done to better support them. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for having me here today. I wish you all a very successful event. Stay safe. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Minister Skinari, for sharing these very pertinent remarks with us and really for setting the scene very well for our session. So with this, let me introduce our excellent panel today and at the same time also ask the audience to answer to a short poll, which should appear on your screen, right in this second. The question you will see is, do you know what an ecopreneur is? Someone who works with sustainability and standards, someone who generates revenue from managing natural resources, someone who has a business that's trying to address climate change, someone who is trying to use resources more efficiently and to reduce waste, or someone who is working to make the traditional sector more eco-friendly. Please do use the poll function while I'm introducing our, by coincidence, even purely female panel today. So let me start with Carita Sepper. Carita, you're the co-founder of TESPAC, a technology company specialized in the development of mobile energy solutions and wearable technology for off-grid purposes. And it combines software and hardware for a complete energy experience. Jane Nakasamu, you're a SEED awardee in 2021, a clean tech innovator and a youth advocate. So you co-founded Greenbelt Energy, a fast-growing renewable energy startup in Zambia, addressing the challenges of charcoal-led deforestation and energy poverty. And then finally, we have Kasha Wainer, the founding partner and director at Evergreen Labs, which is a creative business lab focusing on innovating towards sustainable solutions and ventures for the future. At Evergreen Labs, you oversee, Kasia, the business operations and all idea validation, innovation, and technology within the organization. So a warm welcome to these three fantastic panel members today. In the meantime, and before I now ask our first question, let's check out the results of our poll. What did you answer? And yeah, we see, of course, that in the end, all answers are correct. There is no wrong answer, at least. So ecopreneurship in the end is all of this. It just can have very much different components. And this is also the beauty of our panel, because I think we also have quite a diverse set of panelists and different types of companies. So with that, I would like to ask my first question to both Carita and Jane, which is, which of these different definitions of a youth ecopreneur that we have just seen better suits you and why? Maybe Carita, if I can first turn to you on this one.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Annegret, and thank you for everyone for having me here today on this amazing panel discussion. I think personally, what I relate the most as being an ecopreneur is somebody who works in sustainable industry by incorporating innovation and making this into a successful venture. Perhaps that wasn't exactly as one of the examples, but this is how I see what an ecopreneur for me means. And that's basically exactly what I do as one of the co-founders at TestBack. We have found a way how to combine hardware and software, put that in together and create innovative technology solutions that are helping humanitarian agencies and NGOs in providing access to electricity, by providing access to education in rural regions. And to me, that really is what an ecopreneur is. How to create sustainable, innovative solutions that can make also a positive impact.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot, Carita. And indeed, it's true. One can, of course, add their own definition to this ecopreneur construct, if you want. Jane, how about yourself?
Thank you very much, Annegret, and a warm good afternoon to you and everybody on this panel. I just want to say that I would relate with the last definition that you had stated, where we talk about someone who is working to make a more traditional sector eco-friendly. So I'm going to say a little bit about what I'm currently doing with Indoor Energy. Basically, we are bottling biogas and producing smart biogas stoves that enable women to cook safer. The challenge that we have in Zambia is that 70%, or rather 80% of our population are dependent on charcoal and firewood for cooking. And this actually disproportionately affects women and young people who traditionally do a lot of cooking. So traditionally, there is already a mode of cooking that people have socially accepted. And as an ecopreneur, we're trying to innovate a solution that is safer, that is affordable, and something that will sell and actually make an impact in the community. So that's one that I relate with the most. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot also for providing where you're seeing yourself in the space and illustrating how your business fits into this. Very, very interesting. We're going to talk more about this in a second. Before that, I want to ask Kasia my next question, because in your case, it's quite an interesting case, if I may call it, because on the one hand, you're a co-founder yourself, an ecopreneur, but at the same time, you're helping young ecopreneurs at the same time. And I wanted to ask, what does your lab try to achieve within this context of the local ecosystem for ecopreneurs? And how does it also specifically support them directly?
Great, thanks for the question. And first of all, I'm very honored to be on this panel with such amazing ecopreneurs. It's really great. And good evening from Vietnam. I'm staying up nice and late to participate, so it's really wonderful. I'm happy to explain a bit more what we do at Evergreen Labs. I co-founded Evergreen Labs in 2016 with a mission to solve pressing environmental and social challenges in emerging Asia. We decided to tackle these issues through creating sustainable business solutions that would create long-term impact. We currently have built out 4 operating social businesses, and we'll continue to create more social businesses on our own, but also, as you mentioned, together with ecopreneurs. So I think the best way I can describe this is sort of with an example of how we're working, and maybe that will explain it a little bit better. So just to ask the question, how do we come up with these solutions? First, what we do is we look at the issues that surround us very simply, right? And for an example, let's look at plastic waste. We can see it everywhere. It's clearly a big issue. And what we try to do is understand these problems in depth. So for example, at plastic waste, we look at plastic waste in Vietnam. What is happening to it right now? Is it being collected? Is it being recycled? Where does it go? Things like this. And this is what we call our research phase. In this phase, we do this to identify potential existing solutions that are already here and maybe just need a bit of improvement. But we also look around the world to see if there's existing solutions that could be applied to the region, but just maybe aren't here yet. And we are not trying to reinvent the wheel. And I think that's often maybe a misunderstanding for ecopreneurs. You don't have to be innovative in that way, but potentially the way you innovate is through a business model or through adaptation of an existing solution. So just as an example, again, through our research for plastics in Vietnam, which is very similar across all Southeast Asian countries, we realized one really important thing was that high value plastics, so for example, hard plastics like plastic bottles or laundry detergent bottles, these are all being actually collected and traded for recycling. However, all low value or no value plastics, such as flexible films, wrappers, styrofoam, these aren't being collected because they're not being processed. They're not being recycled or used further. So what we did was identify in very early stage a gap and for us, a potential opportunity. So once we found this potential opportunity, we started to develop our solution. We knew that it had to be simple, had to be cost effective, it had to be an innovative business model that would suit the local context. Again, making sure we were working with informal systems, we were adapting to the ecosystem and the stakeholders at play. And after about 3 years of research and development, we finally started operating one of our social businesses called Reform Plastic, which addresses all plastic and is transforming them into new innovative versatile materials such as boards and sheets, which can be used in your everyday life for furniture, construction, etc. Not only are they affordable, they look great, and they can be returned to us and processed again. So as the minister mentioned, again, this circularity is really, really important when looking at eco-businesses. We're currently scaling this model across Asia and also soon to Africa through a social franchising system. And this is again to power local entrepreneurs and ecopreneurs, also working with informal workers while saving the planet. So I hope that illustrates a little bit more what we do as a creative business lab and how we're implementing solutions in the field.
Yes, very much so. And it's very interesting what you said that, yeah, we do not always have to reinvent the wheel, and that some solutions do exist and they have to be localized. And I think that's a very nice connection also to Carita, because Carita, you're based in a developed country in Finland, and your company, however, offers services mostly in developing countries. So we also see this type of a connection. Huh? What in your case, what drove you to make this choice?
Thank you, Annegret. I think that's a very good point, because typically we tend to see how companies usually go to them biggest markets, whether they, let's say it's in USA or perhaps in China and Asia. But in our case, how everything basically started, well, I'm from Finland, and Finland is already very well known and hailed as one of the countries with one of the best educations in the world. So I've been very fortunate to see what a great impact it has to have access to education. At the same time, my fellow founders and co-founders, they come from South America themselves. So they have also witnessed and seen when growing up and when working, what it also means when you do not have access to electricity, and how this impacts on you having the same equal opportunities on education. So from the beginning, when TESPAC has founded, some of the key parts that has really played a role behind our operations and success is how we also implement our values as part of the whole business operations and growth that we have. And how we ended up really working mainly, let's say, on developing countries is, on one hand, we truly see a major opportunities and growth in these regions. I mean, there still tend to be this, I would say, unfortunate image that we have that the only way to do business is in the typical well-known market, let's say USA and Europe. But at the same time, some of the greatest business growth right now is actually taking place in South America, in parts of Africa, as well as, of course, in Asia. So we have seen that not only there is the business opportunities, because there is not so much competition on first hand, so it can actually offer an awesome playground for startups to go validate their products and really grow the companies. Not to mention, in our team, we actually have people from all those regions. So we have the culture knowledge. We have also the language knowledge, which is major advantage when you go to a new market. But lastly, most importantly, we really see the demand for our solutions. I mean, after all, most of the people who do not have access to electricity, they are also located in these regions. So for us, it just serves a perfect combination of opportunities for growth, but at the same time for demand and the true need and understanding for the products that we have.
Yeah, that's very interesting to also speak about the connection that, about the educational system that you benefited from, and that you also, could collaborate on in the countries where you're active. Exactly. I can also imagine that, and that goes for all the three of you on the panel, that the local circumstances to start a business must have been very different. And also, over the past year, we have seen that the COVID pandemic obviously hit. And I was wondering, in some cases, maybe there was even a positive impact. We've heard that from some businesses, okay, they got more demand since the COVID pandemic. With others, maybe it was more difficult to even be resilient. So my question is, what was that impact for you? And if you had to recover, what did you do in order to recover? Maybe Jane, can I start with you on this one? Yeah, I currently can't see Jane. So how about we go to Carita first?
Awesome. Actually, some of the things that what I witness is, on one hand, and I think everyone we have seen, is that because of COVID, it changed everything, pretty much the way we operate. But most importantly, it really forced a lot of companies to innovate, to find new ways of simply existing. And how I see it is that there has definitely been a lot of challenges and difficulties, definitely also in our own field. I mean, we build hardware products, we build solar panels, energy solutions. This requires parts and components. So naturally, the key disruptions that has also been played a major part in our business operations has been the lack of parts, the delays on the logistics, not to mention on the shipment time. So it has definitely played a major role. But at the same time, these are things that we have been able to go around, because in the end, there's always available parts somewhere. And it has also made us to look closer to Finland, to actually have suppliers and manufacturers located more in a local way, which has been great. One of our key partners is actually next door neighbor for us. So and we only found it because of COVID. So definitely there's been advantages. But the key advantage, and I would also say this is as for anyone else who's also listening there, how to take advantage of this situation, is that because everything has gone pretty much on a virtual mode, it also means that you do not need to no longer do business necessarily in the most traditional way, which in the end, old days, it required you to jump on a plane, to travel to another country, have the face-to-face meeting, do the negotiations, return back to home, and do this back and forth in order to close a deal. Not only is that very unsustainable, if you take into account all the traveling that takes place and the pollution, etc., but what it right now makes sense is that all these traditional, I would say old-fashioned businesses, they have been forced to do business virtually, which has made a lot of companies realize that, you know what, you can have virtual discussions, you can close a deal without actually meeting face-to-face. So we have seen this growing sales in so many ways, because you have so much more time to do a lot more with the business than utilizing like before you would go just on traveling. So that's just one of the key takes. I would take the COVID has also played a major role in providing positive impact, I would say.
Yeah, that's it's good that you highlight that. And also very interesting, you mentioned that, in spite of, you being a young, innovative business, you're still facing these challenges of traditional value chains. It's about the very basic thing. It's about access to the products, to the inputs and services that you need. So that's an interesting takeaway from that. For Kasia, how was that for you, and also for the businesses that you're working with?
Yeah, I think quite similar actually to Carita, but I'm happy to share a little bit more and elaborate. So of course, COVID has impacted all of our businesses. However, what we've found is since we're operating mainly in essential services, such as waste, water, food, we've actually been able to still operate in some form, which of course needed to be adapting according to the changing context. But that really gave us the opportunity to stay operational, which I think also shows the importance of eco-entrepreneurship for sure. I think resilience for us came with a lot of flexibility and accepting that your business models may have to adapt to the surrounding situation and not vice versa. Being able to be that flexible and open-minded, I think, was really important and continues to be important through this pandemic. As Carita already said, I think you have to stay creative and be even more innovative and actually take advantage of new opportunities that might pop up that maybe you weren't expecting, or new partnerships, and keep that motivation level, because I think there are actually really interesting opportunities that came out of the pandemic. But of course, we struggled a lot with supply chain cuts and disruptions, also business closures, our clients were closed, things like that. But we were still able to maintain our team, actually grow our teams, stay break even operationally, and slowly move forward. I think a bit slower than what we wanted, but we're grateful that we could still operate.
Mm-hmm. And maybe a follow-up question to you, Kasia.
Yeah, sure.
Did you see any direct impact on the demand, for example, for environmental services throughout COVID? That there was less demand than for normal services, for example, because people wanted to spend their money differently?
I mean, there was definitely increased demand in fresh products and healthy products, partially because sometimes restaurants were closed, but also because I think people were more health conscious. Particularly in Vietnam, there's quite a trend now, but the pandemic kind of accelerated that. So I think that was quite an interesting find. But again, doing the supply chains from farm to customer was quite tricky, managing all of that with restrictions and provincial closures and things. But yeah, I think that would be one trend I noticed. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And for you, Jane, I imagine you're also very close to the end customer in a sense. How was that for your business?
Well, I would say it's been very challenging, especially that we're very early stage, and at that stage you need to really interact with your customers to get to know what exactly they need for the market surveys, for the feasibility studies, and generally because we're a very small team, so we had to usually spend a lot of time working together. But with the COVID pandemic, being unable to interact, the good thing is that we already had tools in place for virtual working through virtual spaces, shared documentation, and virtual video conferencing. So that was okay. But it was really difficult to go out there and really understand what's going on the ground and really interact with people. In as much as it was challenging, we actually did see some good things come out of the situation, because firstly, there was an urgency that was brought to light about health and the environment. Definitely, people now began to take research more seriously, because before there was a lot of research on the climate change and health impacts, and people never really regarded that. But then because people saw the impact of COVID-19 and what it did to society, people then were ready to listen to innovators in spite of their age. Before you couldn't say anything because you're young and nobody would pay much attention, but then now it was really about dealing with the crisis. And now, even as we speak about the climate crisis, it's not something that people can't relate to. People actually do understand that these are serious issues. It was also a time when we actually were able to fundraise. I think because now people are actually paying attention to these issues, it was easier for us to now actually seek out the financing that we had really needed to start up operations and get things going on. Yeah.
Okay. It's great that you raised the point, Jane, that there was more awareness also throughout the pandemic on these type of social impacts, and that of course is also a key topic for all of the businesses that you guys represent, because previously maybe there was a notion of you have to pick between profitability and doing good. And so how did you see that? Maybe Jane, I directly stay with you for this question. Did you ever experience this notion, okay, we cannot do both at the same time? Or was it always just clear that that this would work?
For us, initially, we had always started from the social aspect, being a social enterprise. But obviously, when you look at the market and you look at society, not really willing, not really ready for such enterprises, it was challenging. But what I can say is that doing good is good for business. And even with the changes that are taking place in the system, in the structures, I think there is a growing awareness and a growing need for sustainable enterprises that really deal with issues in the society, especially when they take a community-centered approach. I think those are the type of interventions that major stakeholders are seeking now. The government and organizations and development actors want enterprises, want companies that really focus not just on making money, but rather making impact as well. So doing good is good for business. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice tagline in the end. Carita, how was that for you? Because you're also essentially, you started out with the social mission.
I think everything what Jane basically said has been pretty much the same case. Something when we started with TestBack, everything started from a problem, as typically companies should start. There is a problem, you want to find a solution, how do you solve it? For us, it was from the beginning, how can we provide access to mobile energy in rural regions? Now that automatically brings already, like by providing this to people, it automatically opens doors to all the other opportunities, providing access to education, to healthcare, to water, sanitation, etc. So from the beginning that we started, it has always been there. Not to mention the values that us founders have supported into starting with TestBack has played a key role. And I do think that today a lot of companies, when they go ahead and they start a business, of course, it is still a business. So you do need to look for something that can generate revenue. But it's not only the only thing that you're looking into it. It's the values that the founders are bringing also on the table that can be incorporated as part of the whole solution that you have. And as Jane said herself, I do see that if you look at the trend right now, there is such a major growing awareness among companies, not only to do business, but also to show that what is the impact that you're making. Pretty much if you go to almost any, let's say almost on the investor websites or acceleration places, they are asking, okay, you have a technology solution, amazing. Now, what are the impact you're creating? What are the SDG goals that you're trying to achieve? So it has already become like an everyday trend. So new companies that start today, I do see them that definitely it's not anymore only about the business. Everyone is already looking what good can they be also doing for the world. And as you can see how everything has been also working around us, it is good for business. Exactly as Jane said it, a good tagline.
Yeah, I can also vouch for that from the experience of in ITC's project. It starts with the impact investors, where you had them being very aware of that impact funding is needed, and now we see it really also going to commercial banks, to any finance market player. So yeah, very very relevant that you said that, Carita. I also wanted to ask you in relation to the challenges, because I assume, of course, COVID in itself was a big challenge. But just very early stage, Jane, you said you're still very early stage. What are some of those key challenges that you met on the way, and how did you also manage to overcome them? Carita, do you want to start?
Oh, perfect. I think if I would go through every challenge and problem that we face, the first day we would be sitting here for the whole, I don't know, the rest of the week, just by listening to me going on and on, because they are every day. There is some problem or challenge that we're facing, and typically they're even new ones. So it's not even the same ones, which is a good news, because that means that we're learning, from the problems and mistakes we've done in the past. But if I have to say one key thing that I do believe it's for any companies out there to really, really look for is the people. I really cannot emphasize more than enough that when you start a business, it's not the idea that's going to make you, let's say, rich and successful. It's truly the people you surround yourself with, that you're working together every day, that share the same values, they share the same passion, and eventually you have the perfect fit of combination of talents. For a very long time, I've been a strong believer on diversity. But when I mean diversity also in the level of different talents. For example, a technology company that is only full of, let's say, engineers is going to be able to create amazing solutions, potentially, but how can they in the end marketize and sell them? You do require the other end as well, the people who have their soft touch, so to say. And this is something we have as a team. So we combine different talents. So that's, for me, the biggest hustle that we've been going through on the years, to find the right people. But once you have them, suddenly a lot of the challenges and obstacles you had, it becomes a lot easier because you can communicate well with the right people, you can execute, and most importantly, you actually also enjoy working, being surrounded by the right-minded people. So always look for the team members if there is one thing you should focus on. To me, that's the most important thing.
Thanks a lot, Carita. How about for you, Jane? Coming from the more early stage, is that any different?
It isn't different actually, and I definitely agree with Carita. That's really important. One of the challenges that we faced as an early stage startup was access to finance. It's really difficult to access finance, especially climate finance and clean tech. And I would also just speak particularly for my country and particularly for the sector that I'm working in. It's very challenging. And it took us a lot of time actually to get to the stage where we're actually bankable, so to speak. And I would say about 4 years or so. And during that period, I think the one thing that really helped was having a supportive team, because when you receive negative feedback, you could either take it negatively and decide to close business, or you could actually try and re-innovate and see how best to refine your model. So having the right team just really helped us bring in different components, even as we are trying to pivot the business, trying to understand what we can do better, how we can better offer our solution, and how we can better pitch our business. The team really has been something that's really important, and building that team is also a challenge because there is a skills gap, a huge skills gap, particularly in my country, in Zambia, in the clean tech sector. So building that, right team with the right skills was challenging, and thankfully, because one way we got through this was through different trainings, different mentorship programs, through different innovation hubs that have really supported us. Even though we don't have those skills, we actually had mentors mentor us through this process. And I'm really, really grateful to the Ministry of Foreign Development from Finland, because they have been a huge supporter of small enterprises in Zambia, and through different innovation hubs, we've been able to actually get the skills, get the right team together. Even if we don't have the team member, we can ask for support from our mentors, from our coaches, and actually build a minimum viable product that we have then used to pitch and successfully raise funding and successfully at least take it to the next stage and get awards for it, like the Seed Awards and other awards that actually open other different doors for us.
Yeah. Thanks, Jane, for highlighting this. Maybe this is also a good point for me to say that from ITC side, we currently are running the Youth Ecopreneur Awards, and applications are still open, and the support is actually the biggest prize. It's not the financial support necessarily, but it's really also the technical support that comes with it. So applications are still open until tomorrow. Do apply if you still have time. And I think it's also a very nice segue to Kasia again, because Kasia, with Evergreen Labs, I understand that you're also providing this type of support. And in particular, young founders that want to bring scale to their business, that have started an idea but don't know really where to go further. I imagine you would have some good advice for them based on your own experience. And maybe I'll start out with that question for you, Kasia.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I love this question, and I'm really happy to share a little bit more. I think from our side, and also as an ecopreneur myself of multiple social businesses, what's already been echoed through the panel is really looking for the solid support and mentorship. I think that can really provide a good foundation for your work. But I think none of that exists unless you are working for a purpose and for a meaning that not only will create impact, but of course give you fulfillment personally and feel like you are making that contribution to society or towards the environment. I think if you don't have that, as panel has already discussed, you won't be able to build a strong team who will believe in your mission, who will believe passionately with you that they can create that impact. So I think that's really the core part of getting started. And if you don't have that, I can give some advice on where to start, but I think, just to give you that first.
Yeah. And actually that advice, how do you then remain relevant? Because I assume that, things evolve over time and you want to stay relevant as an organization for the entrepreneurs that you're also serving.
Yeah, for sure. I think we are very aware of our surroundings, our markets, and the opportunities at hand. We don't just develop solutions because we think they're really interesting. We make sure that there's some sort of demand. There's also maybe a need. There's new government regulation coming to place that will open opportunities so that we can be the, the pioneer in that sector. That's sort of where we're looking to innovate. So I think that's also key as an entrepreneur and ecopreneur, is if you have a passion, looking for opportunities and maybe entering markets. Like when I came to Vietnam 6 years ago, Central Vietnam in particular, very, very nascent ecosystem here, but we specifically chose this location because we saw so many opportunities and no one else doing what we wanted to do. So I think you have to kind of take that risk and be courageous and confident that you will be able to build something successful, but there has to be that kind of feasibility or market understanding first. I think that's important.
Very good that you're also speaking about what it means to be successful, really. And that's actually also what I wanted to ask Carita and as also Jane. In your enterprise, what is it, the type of success or the element of your success, what could also inspire others when thinking about your own story?
I think that's really a good thing. What I've seen a lot through, let's say, different people that I met, but there still tend to be a lot of this, I would say, misunderstanding or an idea that you need to be extremely talented in order to be successful, or you need to be an engineer or a coder in order to start a career in technology, or let's say even becoming an ecopreneur. And when you do not have that background or that degree, a lot of people tend to think, it's not going to work out, and they let it be. And this is the biggest mistake I believe you can be doing. Like myself, I'm not actually an engineer myself, or I don't have a technical background, but I still ended up co-founding a technology company focusing on sustainability. What you really do need to have is the passion towards something. Like if you are passionate about solving, let's say, a challenge, even if you don't have the right background or the skill sets for that, you can acquire it. Right now, you can learn a lot of new things online virtually. You can surround yourself with the right type or the right mindset of people that can provide you this support. And most importantly, it's not only about the talent, it's really about the perseverance, the grit, and just trying to follow and work on it on every single day. In the end, becoming a successful or not, it's just all about the work and the effort that you're willing to put into it. Like all the talent, all the skills that I truly believe you can earn it, you can, learn it. But if you do not have the personality or attitude, it's just going to be extremely difficult to really make it. So to everyone out there, do not let it, let you down if you haven't studied now the right degree or something. Honestly, it's not too late, and you can really still become an ecopreneur yourself.
Yeah, it's really about the effort that you put in. Jane, can I also give that question to you?
Yes, and I've actually been inspired by Carita because I don't have an engineering background either. And here I am in clean technology. I would say the most crucial element is the relevance of your business, or rather your idea, because now we're talking to people who may not even have a business, you just have an idea. In our case, as Green Energy, we're dealing with providing more inclusive energy, which is very relevant. Like I stated earlier, 80% of the population in Zambia don't have access to clean energy. So there is that huge demand, and this problem disproportionately affects women and young people. A recent study by WWF just showed that the usage of charcoal is leading to deforestation, and Zambia has one of the highest rates of deforestation in the region and the globe, actually. So if we're not careful, by 2030, we would have lost most of our forests, which is a huge problem. And it's sad to say that there are actually not enough efforts to curb this crisis. I think that was where the passion came from to deal with this. I think we stood up as young people and said, okay, if people are not innovating enough, if we're not seeing enough action in this area, we will stand up, we will do what we can, however long it takes, and do the best of what we can do. So I just feel that the relevance of your idea is really important, and that's really should be the driving force to keep you going in spite of different challenges that you will face.
Yeah, no, very true. And we also had questions from your audience now. I'm sure they were, because they were also inspired by you. So if they have a business idea, who can they reach out to in order to get support? Maybe Kasia, can I also give that question to you?
Sure, of course. I'm happy to take it. First, I'd just like to add, I'm also not from this sector at all. So I have a science background. I did cancer research before. So please, you can make the jump, you can make the career switch. I think what's most important for me was really to follow what I was passionate about and to feel like I was contributing in the best way. And so I think it's possible as long as you have that drive and that motivation. I think that's the most important. Sure, for green ideas and green support, if you're looking at Asia Pacific, contact me. I'm happy to look further and investigate your solution. We're always seeking out partnerships, looking for ways to bring in innovation into Vietnam, but also other Southeast Asian countries or South Asia. So please feel free. I might also be able to connect to relevant network partners and things like that. So happy to reach out, not a problem. But besides that, I think what's really key, especially for early stage, is to get involved in some sort of program that might support you with proper mentorship to really fledge out your idea and get you kind of off the ground. I think the mentors are really key in the very early stage, which I think Jane also mentioned, because that gives you, a good push in the right direction, also makes you think about things maybe a bit differently, gives you external perspective on your idea, which maybe when you're really focused on, very passionate idea, you might lose track of sort of the bigger picture. So I think that would be a really good recommendation from my side to get started, or find suitable partners to help you start.
Yeah, and that of course takes also a lot of courage. Huh?
For sure.
People are in a more settled environment, or they have things to take care of anyways. So the courage, the spirit, I very much agree. But with you as 3 role models, I think it doesn't seem like such a big jump. And actually that brings me to my last question as part of this panel. And Jane, you just talked about it a little bit. We see so much environmental impact, and it's all about action basically. And ecopreneurs, they are the ones that act. Now we also know, support is very key. And at the policy level, there are also different multilateral processes going on, which are of course more, let's say, detached from maybe the day-to-day business of an ecopreneur, but they still have the power to shape the business ecosystem, for example. So we have the COP26, which will happen in November. From the trade side, we have a ministerial conference coming up where the trade ministers are going to meet. So I'm wondering, with a perspective on these policy-related discussions, what would you want policymakers to consider in their discussions, negotiations, to tackle some of the roadblocks that you may face in your daily business?
Thanks for that question, Annabeth. I would say it's important to bring us to the table. I feel like us making policies from here might not be fully understood by them, and then they may also not fully understand what we are experiencing as ecopreneurs. When at the end of the day, whatever policies come up will definitely have a huge impact on how we are working. And we are trying definitely to make a difference to combat issues to do with climate change and other society problems. So I would say it's really important that young people, young ecopreneurs are given the opportunity to actually be there at the table, to actually make their voice heard. So I feel that it's important that even in these processes, during the policy formulation, during the implementation, and all different stages, they need to involve young people, because ultimately we have a very huge stake in the future future, and the future is impacted by decisions that are being made today. Yeah, that would be my one takeaway.
Thanks a lot, Jane. Very, very relevant. Carita, can I turn to you next?
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I could not echo more than what Jane said. I think to actually also continue a little bit from there, something that right now as a company we're actually going through, and I would really love for the policymakers to remember that sometimes also a lot of the companies, let's say startups like ours, the talent you require is not in the country where you're based. You require outside talent. And right now, the level of bureaucracy in order to get the permit, the visa, it's very, very tedious work. It's a long process. It can take up to 12 months. How do I know it? We're actually going through this process right now. 12 months for somebody to wait to get the permit. It's ridiculous. I mean, that's a lifetime in a small business, the operation. So I would really, really love to see that the policymakers, because there is already a lot of talks where we're talking, we need outside talent, we need to bring more people to support. That's amazing. But let's actually help those people to get the right permits. The level of bureaucracy is just out of this world. And that needs to really change if we actually want the businesses to grow and eventually hire the people. So that would be my one key takeaway to take.
Yeah, again, a different perspective. Thanks so much, Carita. And finally, Kasia, let me turn to you.
Yeah, both panelists offered really good insight. So let me just summarize really quick what I think is most urgent. Very simply, we need to see action. I think we need to see relevant green regulations being put into place, which will allow for more opportunities for innovators and ecopreneurs to come in and do their most important work. I think the more supportive frameworks will not only should support and encourage green design, circular economy, regenerative solutions, because once these barriers are removed, the opportunities really become endless. And I'm convinced that ecopreneurs will solve the climate crisis.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kasia, also for that one. I really feel only in this last question we could continue talking for another hour, because there are so many things to discuss on this matter. But with this one, I'm also very time conscious. So I would first of all like, for now to thank all of you as panelists for your really, really great inputs. And I really want to say, let's take these recommendations also as a call for action after these sessions. So, speaking to our audience, there might be policymakers in there that have just heard what you were talking about. If you can turn this into action, I think that would be a really, really great outcome of this session. So before wrapping up, I would actually also like to turn again to the audience and open another very small poll question. And that is, as a follow-up to the first question that we've had, do you feel after this session, you have a stronger grasp of what ecopreneurship is and how it contributes to the green economic transition? So it's a very, very easy question. And while the answers are coming in, before closing, let me really take this opportunity to thank different partners here. First of all, of course, our speakers. Thank you so much for all your great ideas and your inspiration. I think that was really a very, very inspirational session as part of this public forum here. Thank you so much. Also, of course, Finland, and in particular, the Finnish mission here in Geneva for co-organizing the event together with ITC, and there in ITC, particularly the Youth and Trade team, the great colleagues there, also the Green to Compete team. It was really a team effort to put the session together. And finally, also to our audience, thank you for taking the time to stay with us for 1 hour in all of your busy schedules. And I think we're also just seeing the results of the poll. And there, I'm looking at my co-organizers. So I just see it here. We have 66% saying yes. So I'm taking this as a good reflection that this was a very interesting discussion and that we could also contribute with this to our audience. So with that, thanks again to all of you that are present. Thank you to our great panelists. And if you have any questions, please do reach out to ITC. We're happy to forward also to the speakers. And thank you and wish you a good afternoon. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.